Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Our Tamil Innovators Spotlight is an online series which puts the spotlight on individuals from around the world who are in the Tamil community, and they're building awesome products, services, and initiatives. Our latest event is brought to you in partnership with MyStartupDojo.com and Tamil Culture. And my name is Anjali Narendran, and I'm so excited to be your host today. I'm program director at MyStartupDojo.com, host of the 2020 show, two times robotics world champion, having beat 20,000 international teams, and I founded my first venture when I was just 15. Now I'm committed to spreading that spirit of entrepreneurship with other young people through Startup Dojo. From Steve Jobs to Ben Franklin, the world was built by entrepreneurs. And that entrepreneurial skills are leadership skills. And with the right support and guidance, any young person can become an entrepreneur and build a successful venture before they even graduate high school. I know it's true because I've done it. So at Startup Dojo, we give ambitious students the tools and support that they need to become entrepreneurs and leaders. If you're an ambitious student or you know an ambitious student who's interested in joining, feel free to apply at mystartupdojo.com/apply. And by the way, if you like three things, you are definitely going to want to stick around until the end of this event because we have some awesome surprises lined up for you. Now, without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce Vino Jeyapalan, our featured guest this evening. We're so thrilled to welcome Vino. Vino has worked at Facebook, where he spent a lot of time helping e-commerce brands grow their businesses. He was also recently featured on Forbes 30 Under 30 2021 for his incredible work at Kabo. And he's also been named Marketing Mag's 30 Under 30. Now he's joining us as the co-founder and CEO of Kabo, an incredible Canadian-based company that's on a mission to bring fresh dog food to dog owners. The stuff that they're doing is awesome. And as a dog owner myself, I love what they're doing to help keep our pets healthy. So thank you so much for being with us this evening, Vino. I'm so excited to have this discussion.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share as much as I know, and hopefully this will be the last time I'm on a 30 under 30 list because time's running short for me.
All right, so let's jump into things. So you co-founded Kabo in 2019. Why don't you tell us a bit about that and the backstory behind how it got started?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one thing that my co-founders and I could attest to is over the past 10 years or so, we've really spent a lot of time in the consumer product space and watching the evolution happen, whether it be on the operational side of really understanding how things around like fulfillment and shipping were changing, to even on the aspect that you could just start a brand with a simple Shopify store and $30 in your pocket to start running some Facebook ads, and boom, you had a brand started just overnight. So from watching that and being a part of that, I'd say ecosystem and fostering it over time, it really gave myself and my brother and my co-founders the urge as well to jump in and think really what we wanted to do over the next 10 years of our life. And when we look back at it, I think what was really interesting is we've always been avid animal lovers and always attempted to have pets growing up. And once we had the opportunity to get our own dog, my brother and I, went through this tumultuous experience of trying to raise a dog and, going through the same experiences that most pet owners go through, which is Googling the same problems that someone else has Googled 5 to 10 years ago, and searching for answers constantly of whether it was what the best diet was or what the best ability or like focus was in terms of like trying to mitigate around some of these degenerative issues that that kind of impede our dog's health. We were constantly baffled by it, and at a certain point, after our dog passed away, we really realized that there was an opportunity here to impact the daily ritual of the dog's diet, and that's really where Kabo Fresh Dog Food got its first start.
Right, and Kabo, the name Kabo, tell us about that.
Yeah, so funny enough, Kabo was the name of the dog that we had the first time around. So she was about to be surrendered into a shelter. My roommate and my brother and I had the opportunity to adopt her, and we jumped right at it. We were constantly, like many people, when they're on their first search for their dog or their first cat, they're on Google searching what breeds or whether to choose a rescue or a breeder. And there's a serendipitous opportunity which our roommate actually found, and my brother and I. And when we had the chance to bring Kabo into our life, we jumped at it, and we luckily were able to adopt this 5-year-old fluffy Chow Chow who had a great life ahead of her, and we were lucky enough to introduce her, because if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have had this mission around um, really solving the diet issue that most dog parents face. I think for us, we try to, switch her off of this Walmart-based kibble that had all these like amazing colors and looked great to us. Little did I know that dogs are colorblind. So why is their food colorful? It's obviously to market to humans. But we tried so many diets, and at a certain point, because she was a lot older and she was fixed in her ways, we didn't have that ability to switch her diet as easily as we thought, because the options were limited, whether we looked on Amazon or retail stores or even online. And when we came around and started realizing after she passed away that a lot of the health issues that could have been mitigated were through really diet and activity, very much so like humans, it's diet and activity that depicts a lot of what our lifestyle is going to be. We really thought hard about how we can change this. And when we started thinking more and more about the solution, we just knew the driver was really around our dog, the first dog that we had in our lives. And we decided to name the company after her as we went forward.
Right. And something super cool that I think you guys have recently done was you've actually been on Dragon's Den. And Dragon's Den and Shark Tank have been responsible for, I feel like, bringing entrepreneurship to like the vast public and making it, more of a common thing. So it's really cool that I think you've been on and experienced that. So from a founder's perspective, what was it like to be there and, be behind the camera?
Yeah, honestly, that experience was magical to say the least. In 2006, when that show I think first premiered, my dad and my brother and I used to watch it. Ever since then, and then eventually when I went off to university, it kind of continued, and we've always been fans of it. And I think you nailed it on the head there, where these types of shows that were being brought into the entertainment ecosystem just really brought entrepreneurship to a whole nother light. You got to see people from a different perspective that were, father son, just with a simple idea, or a bunch of university students coming together and trying to really change the way human behavior might be. And the spectrum of it just really always inspired me. And when it came down to why we were building Kabo and why we came back to Canada to do this and really build it as a Canadian business, it made a lot of sense for us to try and apply for Dragon's Den. The interesting part was when we did do the auditions for it, it was right before COVID. And then right when COVID hit, they canceled the auditions and had to reschedule, like essentially at that point, assumed that the season wasn't going to be airing. What I thought was one of the best parts of that experience was that the team and the producers who were putting it together literally took something that they do in like 6 to 8 months and somehow did it in a matter of a few months, and were able to get it to start airing in October. So it was an interesting experience because we got to go and see the show for the first time when they had a new set of procedures around COVID, and at the same time introducing businesses that were trying to change the dynamic that was happening in the community.
Right. And can you think of like a notable experience, a notable exchange with maybe a dragon that stuck out?
Yeah, I think what was really interesting was that doesn't get aired is the experience my brother and I had, kind of just creating a personal relationship with each of them. Because what was really interesting was, when we were younger, the first time we ever interacted with our first ever social network was actually Lane's company, which is Penguin Club. One of the first jobs that our family has ever been given the opportunity to work was at Jim Treveling's Boston Pizza. So it was great just being able to see the people that have given our family such an impact in Canada, and to just show appreciation to say, hey, listen, like I know you're the guy who started Boston Pizza, but you really gave us the opportunity to work there. And then on the other end, it was just looking at something like Penguin Club and, even our first introduction to the internet. And at that time, my brother and I would have these like AT&T dial-up CDs that we would use and have 2 hours on there and spend 15 minutes of it on Penguin Club. So I think that was probably one of the most fun experiences, is just being able to see the people that made such an impact in the earlier stage of our lives.
Right, that's crazy. It's like this really cool full circle Canadian experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, and recently you've been featured Forbes 30 under 30. Tell us about how that's going, what that's like. How's that all going for you?
Yeah, I think it's always a great accolade to get these awards, but I think at the end of the day, we're still busy focusing on our mission of trying to sell some dog food and making sure that consumers really are being educated through that process. What's really interesting is like you don't get a lot of notice as to when it happens, so it was a shock and surprise to find out that morning, and I think the team was super excited. The way we really look at it, it's great for us as a business because it allows us to really present ourselves amongst the Canadian community, to help share our vision, and then hopefully help add in terms of finding some talent to join our team, or for people to really hear more about the Kabo story and the importance that it has in terms of the helping to build around the Canadian economy, especially in this kind of time. We just found out about a few weeks ago, so the 50 minutes of fame, I imagine, is still lasting, and I've got some time until it runs out. But we're excited to see, what kind of doors it opens up for us.
Right. Yeah. And backtracking a bit, why don't we talk a bit more about, the story of what it was like to get Cabo off the ground? What was it like, so you have this idea that's inspired by your pet. What did it
Mhm.
look like after that point?
Yeah, really. After that point, it comes down to validation. So, for most of 2018, we were really thinking about this idea, really nitpicking it, doing a lot of research, trying to understand, like, why hasn't this problem been solved, and what were the levers stopping people or the blockers stopping people from going forward. Once we had enough of confidence, it became okay. This has to, the pen has got to go to paper at some point. And I think that's where a lot of the paralysis happens in entrepreneurship, where you can spend hours talking about an idea, but it doesn't really become a solution until you actually build it. So in January 2019, we took that dive in, incorporated, and essentially just started the journey of being able to prove out our hypothesis, which was, do consumers really want healthier dog food and more variety than what's currently out there? And given to them through a direct to consumer model, or a model that allows them to have access to this beyond retail, or an Amazon or a Chewy. And in the beginning, it was really funny. Is from January until probably July 2019 when we really did our official launch. We were focused on some of the basic aspects that consumer product doesn't highlight too much, which is the operations. My college roommate is also one of our co-founders and leads our operations efforts. And in the beginning, I think a lot of it's like, can we even make this dog food? Who do we get to formulate this? How do we get this to customers? How do we get customers to come back? These were some of the basic things that we're focused on. And the best way we went about it was actually not even focusing on building a fancy website or a perfected consumer experience. We went to Instagram, on our personal accounts, direct messaging random people on the internet. And the way we were able to identify them as dog owners or pet owners is actually fairly easy, because one of the great things about pet parents is we're a very identifiable segment on the internet. And especially with things like Facebook, TikTok, or even if you take like a time capsule back to 2005 when we had Flickr, people still put up photos of their dog. It's not like someone is sitting there as like a product manager saying, all right, how do I like get people to put up photos of their pets? Whether they're at TikTok or Facebook, it's just innate in us to do this and to share this, just like we love sharing baby photos and cat photos. And that really allowed us to say, okay, can we go on Instagram and just search the hashtag Toronto and dogs, and find people who have dogs in Toronto, and try and convince them and see what really stuck with them. Was it the fact that fresh food helps with the lifespan? Was it the fact that fresh food helps with picky dogs? Was it the fact that it's an alternative health resource for them in terms of trying to find a diet that focuses on some of the degenerative issues that dog's going to face in the future? And it really helped us, narrow down where our focus was going to be in the beginning. And that's really how everything got started. Wasn't a fancy website. There wasn't any transactions. It was just, DMing a lot of people on Instagram to see if they'd be willing to buy dog food from these individuals who they knew nothing about and didn't have a website. And if we knew we could hit this like touch point, then we knew we had something, in front of us to pursue even further.
Right. So what did you do once you convinced the first person on Instagram to buy dog food? Is that when you started production, or what was that?
Yeah, so luckily we were able to work with some veterinary nutrition consultants, and they were able to help us with our first formulation. We then went on to produce those in commercial kitchens that we rented on an hourly basis because we didn't have enough to do our own kitchens at that time. So we would go in on maybe evenings with, one of my co-founders, his wife, my parents, our roommates, and go and get all the certifications for that we needed to enter the facility, get everyone to finish the program, and then we'd go end up cooking on evenings and weekends to start making the food for these people. So we wanted to understand what the process was like to make this food. How do we maintain product consistency? Because it's really important for us to understand what's the standard of procedures around this recipe development. And we really only had one recipe at the time. It was a beef recipe, and we really had to figure out, how do we make this? How do we create the level of consistency? How do we tweak the packaging to make it as easy as possible? And hand delivering it and being involved literally on day one, kind of continuing onward throughout July into the summer months of producing the food ourselves, getting it to the customers, and really understanding end to end what that process was like when we're creating this customer focused supply chain, to really see, how do we bring the right partners in, whether it's a shipping courier or if it's a partner to help us produce and source the food. What was really important to us and what did we need to communicate to these individuals? And unless we put ourselves in the trenches, we would never be able to understand that. So for the next few months, it was really focused on, just getting our hands dirty of doing it ourselves.
Right. And you earlier you mentioned that your parents were in that first commercial kitchen with you.
Yeah.
So what were your parents' take on everything you were doing with Cabo?
I think at
It
this
sounds
point,
very supportive.
yeah, at this point, my parents have been very supportive. I
Yeah.
think, I think at a very early age, like they've always seen that myself and my brothers have always had this inkling to do a bit more. I think naturally we just learned it from them. Like my parents are like probably the hardest hustlers in the world, making ends meet, whether it was from day one when we got to this country to still to this day. They show us the tenacity they have around like truly making a dream possible. So it's almost like it's impossible for us not to have that type of drive. And the moment we started, even still to this day, my parents ask all the time about helping to do QA checks at the facility to make sure the product's right. And what's interesting is when we were coming over from Switzerland before we were in Canada, my mom actually had experience working in a food co-manufacturing plant, and my mom and dad have worked multiple jobs across the board. You name it, they've probably done it. Anything that would help make ends meet, and it was great just to like see that side of them come out, where past experiences even had an ability to reflect onto what we were doing today. And they've always had this inkling to always support their kids, and I think it'll never stop for them. But it's always great and endearing, especially in the beginning when we get to have that light type of support, whether it's our co-founders, partners, or our parents, or even our friends and roommates that just really see the passion that we have and the vision that we have beyond just what they're doing at that moment in that day. Because it is pretty grueling to start cutting sweet potatoes and beef liver in a kitchen for 3 to 4 hours.
Right. But all in all, super supportive and super QA checks. Your mom was volunteering to do QA checks. So
Yes.
that's awesome. So going from, parents and sons working in the trenches for forever long to try and figure it out to where you are now. What does the process of scaling up and growing look like?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting process, because what can happen is sometimes I feel as an entrepreneur, you can get stuck in the weeds and wanting to control everything and not letting things go. So the transition process is really about thinking, how do I use my time better in other areas of the business? So obviously at a certain point, as my brother became head of growth, as Zach, our other co-founder, became our lead around operations, as we started to bring on more and more team members, it was really about, how do we, get away from just cooking the food and cutting it ourselves, to then really focusing on the key elements of the business that allows us to prove this at a larger scale. When we first started, I think it was about like 5 or 10 customers we had. One of my best friends from university was actually one of our customers, Amy, and she still is our customer today, which is crazy to hear because what a journey that product's gone through. But we realized that we need to take a step back and say, how do we start getting feedback from these customers and talking to these individuals that were our customers and paying and saying, how can we improve the product? And hearing things that we needed more recipe diversification to solve allergy issues around a dog's diet, or if we needed to think about the onboarding experience, or even the experience the subscriber has is very important, and ensuring that they have an easy, seamless experience that allows them to have a flexible subscription, that they can switch between diets, that they can pause and unpause, continue with different quantities. I think all those aspects are very important. And in order for us to do that, we really had to start taking this hat off as executors and people in the trenches and almost put on a different hat that allowed us to think on a higher level as to how do we think about the next stage. And really for us, the next stage was focused around retention. And we were very, very focused around the aspect of saying, if we have these customers and they have this issue every single day of feeding their dog, which if you have a dog, you have three issues in your life, feeding them, walking them, or picking up their poop. And for us, it was very much around the aspect of feeding them. And if they didn't come back the next month, we really needed to ask why, because this is a problem they have every day. And we needed to make sure we solved that. So our heads were really focused around that. And after we were really able to wrap our heads around the initial product and the fulfillment and the customer experience, it really became down to how do we think about increasing the retention of this business. And a lot of it was taking a step back and saying, how do we remove ourselves from parts of the business that we've built and bringing in better people that are smarter than us to do this and scale it to the next level.
Right. And can you think of an interesting challenge or curveball that was thrown at you along this journey? I'm sure there are many, but can you maybe pinpoint one that sticks out to you and how you dealt with it?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting ones were definitely around COVID. So I think with Kabo, what doesn't get shared a lot online is outside of delivering you fresh, healthy dog food, is we're a very data-driven focused company. So for us, we look at everything from external data such as Google searches to our primary data that we collect from our customers and even the dogs themselves. And the moment we heard about Seattle, having this outbreak originally, we went to Google search and looked at the search trends that Canadian dog owners were making over a 14-day period. And what we started noticing was that there's this surge over, I think it was over 36% surge happening over a 14-day period where consumers were searching for dog food delivery businesses. And over time, we started looking at other terms. And one of the terms that we looked at was Canadian veterinary health and telehealth for vets, for animals. And what we noticed was that surge was absolutely phenomenal, where over a 30-day period, it was over 400% increase. And when we saw that, we really started to say, okay, our community of dog parents are definitely going to be running into some issues, and we need to talk to them and figure out what's happening. So when we actually did reach out, and we have this process where, we constantly send surveys or emails to just stay in touch with our consumers. And we learned that the shutdown of veterinary clinics and animal hospitals was one of the top concerns of a pet parent at the initial outbreak, because at that time, what happened was a lot of the PPE equipment they had, ventilators had to be sent to the human hospitals, rightfully so at that time, to help support the initial outbreak. And for most people, what that meant was that, they treat their fur babies as if they're a member of their family, and rightfully so, they do. And, imagine if you had your medical care taken away from your own child. And I think that feeling, really resonated with us. And it was a huge challenge because we sat there really thinking, as a very nascent company in early 2020, we didn't have the ability to support these people as much as they wanted to. So, the co-founders and us just came together and said, listen, we need to build an online vet telehealth solution that offers a free virtual care system for our customers. And by partnering with clinics and hospitals across the country in every single province, we were able to do this. And, we bit the bullet. We said, okay, I guess we're not getting paid anytime soon. And we just gave up, forgave salaries and, until essentially end of 2020 to help fund this project, because we were paying the vets to essentially provide free veterinary care for any of our customers. We knew that was the right decision to make. We knew that it wasn't worth even thinking about it twice. the moment we launched for our customers, they absolutely loved it, that we said, okay, we need to expand this to all of Canadian dog owners and cat owners, because we'd have their friends kind of messaging and saying, okay, can we use this service as well? And we opened it up for the month of April and May. And it was a very tough decision to make, because in a business sense, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Like, why would you spend money in telehealth when your primary objective is to sell food? But I think at that time, we really knew that the right decision to make was to support the community. When we think about Kabo, the goal really is for us to build trust with pet owners. They've lost so much trust over these past 10, 30 years, if you think about it, and even longer, with, dog food brands constantly causing recalls, ingredient issues. And when these issues happen, the big kibble brands, do a lot of great things to support the community. But I think, sending dog food to a shelter is a great way of supporting it, but there's got to be a step further. And when we really listened to our community, we found an area that people weren't paying attention to. We just had to step in. It was just the right thing to do. And looking back at it, it helped us. It helped our brand. It helped build trust. But it was really always thinking about this balance of what's right for the business in terms of fiscally responsible action, and then the other end of it, thinking about what do you do that really actually supports the community? Like, if these are your customers, they're going to be buying your product, then were you there for them at the hardest times? And I don't know if a lot of brands can say that. And I think, if we didn't do that, and even if it did end up, shutting our business down, we'd be proud about it, because I think the reality is that that's what the new version of brands need to do. And that was probably one of the most difficult decisions being made, because we obviously have investors, stakeholders, and ourselves that we, hope to be able to have some kind of income towards. But I think the reality was that we had a bigger goal in mind.
Right. So what is the plan for the telehealth arm look going forward? Is it something that you're going to continue growing indefinitely, or is this just a COVID thing?
It was just a COVID project. So, we had a lot of fun talking to the regulatory boards, because the moment they hear about a free vet virtual clinic, it's a private industry. So it's almost like going to the States and saying, hey, we've got free human healthcare. So I don't think that's well received in the industry, let's say. So we, had it as a limited program. And, what we did is we had a lot of great learnings. And I think in the future, if there is that opportunity, we will hopefully be able to create some type of impact. We're just not sure what it is. We knew for the month of April and May, it was just the thing the community needed, and we were the right people to bring it in.
Right. Yeah, now shifting gears a bit, I'd love to talk a bit more about your past. So before founding Cabo, you were actually at Facebook for around 5 years and were named Marketing Makes 30 Under 30 for some of your work. You ran the largest FB ads campaign in Canada. So I'd love to hear more about what that was like, what your time at Facebook was like. And yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think it was probably the best education I've ever gotten in my life, considering the fact that I dropped out of university. So, I think I had a very, serendipitous moment in my life where at 21, I had the opportunity to join Facebook. This is 2012. The company wasn't public yet. It didn't have the ads infrastructure I had today. It wasn't like what it was. And it was really like a very, startup-y culture that was getting into this world of really taking over the ad ecosystem, the ability to connect people across the world. And for myself and eventually my brother who joined, we got to be join the rocket ship for the initial takeoff. And it was just an amazing experience to be able to work alongside some of the top growing e-commerce brands globally. My brother got to work with some of the top retailers such as Walmart, to even Canadian brands like Canadian Tire, and help grow them and bring them into the digital age. And we got to see what it was like, and the opportunities that were being created by these types of platforms. Understanding that was actually, one of the main reasons that we wanted to go into consumer product, was that we saw barriers being broken by these types of companies. And one thing I always give advice in terms of other younger entrepreneurs who are really interested in jumping into entrepreneurship right away, or kind of battling between a full-time job. I think what doesn't get glorified as much is really the ability to learn from others. And we had that at Facebook, right? We were surrounded by the Dollar Shave Clubs of the world, all the way to the ND mattresses in Canada. And being able to just see them and watch them operate and ask questions is an educational opportunity on our end to truly figure out what our passion is, or our curiosity going forward. And I think without Facebook, we wouldn't have had that. And then the second thing I'd like to amplify more on is the people. It was a phenomenal watching and being surrounded by those people. And I think that when I joined in at the office, it was maybe 13 people or so, and it grew to about 150, and probably more than that to this day. And my brother had the opportunity to help launch the Vancouver office and move out there and build out our, help support the startup community in that direction. And just having that door open to us. And if you think about it, as young 20-something-year-olds, you have this energy and drive to learn naturally as a human. When it's put towards things that you're very interested towards, it continues and it fosters. And I'm forever grateful for the Facebook community. Even to this day, I could not recommend working at Facebook more. It's a different environment than it was before, but it still provides the same type of value. And I think as we start to look at some of these other great game changers like TikTok or Snapchat or Pinterest, these are all great companies that are coming to Canada, giving a lot of young people the opportunity to make a global impact without having the risk, right? And for us, when we saw that really drove us. That really gave us the drive to do something riskier with our lives. And I don't think there is any other company in this type of world that offers that ability, and that's what we really were able to take away from it.
And you also mentioned, I slid this in there, where you mentioned that you dropped out of school to work at Facebook, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Your parents are super on board with Kabo. How did they feel about that decision?
They weren't 100% on board at that time, I would say. It was an interesting time because I was studying biomedical science at Western and was also enrolled in the Ivy program. And I think at that time I was just going through this back and forth where in my summer internships, I was learning a lot more than I was in school. Or maybe the alignment wasn't there in terms of the programs I was in. And I just felt that, there was so much happening in San Francisco when I would go on my reading week to go work at another company, that I wanted more of that time. And it became more and more difficult to do that in school. And I decided, I'm going to take a year off. And that's originally how the conversation started. It was just a break from school. And, once I got a job, and the funny part was my parents weren't even Facebook users at that time. So they'd always called the Facebook, and they didn't really understand the business at the time. But I think they've always been very patient. They've always been very trustworthy, trusting of our decisions, and had have grown a propensity to give a little bit of a slack on the rope. So I think as they gave a little bit of that slack, I did try and do online school during that time, which does not work as well, because you need to have focus towards one or the other. And I think over time, as they started to see the company grow and myself individually just come back home with this kind of energy and talk about the businesses that I was working with and sharing the impact that I was being able to make, they saw, this was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And they kind of shifted gears from, I think, doing the right thing that most parents should do is like when your kids tell you they're going to drop out or take a year off. I don't think most parents should be sitting there pushing their kids in that direction. I think the goal of being a parent is that, you want your kids to have a good path, and a good path is a safe path. And it's something that maybe that they know or that they don't know, but they know it's good enough for you to follow. That'll give you a security that they didn't have in their life, right? And for them, they risked a lot to come here. So for us to give something like that away, and especially when my brother and I had full ride scholarships, it was a lot to give away, right? So it was a big risk. And I think for them, they did the right job of questioning me and making sure this is the right decision and making sure I mitigated that risk. But over time, after a year went by and after 2 years went by, at that point, I think they saw the opportunity I had and the growth that I had from just making that jump.
Right. And once you made this jump, you tons of lessons you got from being at Facebook.
Yeah.
So can you pinpoint maybe the largest lesson that's impacted how you do things at Kabo?
Yeah, I think one of the best things I learned at Facebook was just feedback. Like, I remember just being this very young, energetic kid who wanted to do it all and have like a million promotions and work as hard as possible and travel as much as possible. But I think one of the best things I learned from Facebook was that, everything needs to take time and there has to be feedback in order for that communication to occur. And if it wasn't for my managers really sitting down, giving me that feedback, teaching me, why it's important to have this like two-way communication, and not everything is always focused on the results or the business KPIs. It's actually really focused on being able to communicate what's happening and why are things happening. I really learned early on that it was important for me to think about, okay, why are the businesses and the clients that I work with more successful than the other ones? And how do I get to create that type of knowledge and share it amongst all of Facebook? Right. And I think many companies face this struggle, which was, how do we collaborate? And it's still, at that time, even when I left, like Facebook's, one of their biggest challenges was always collaboration. And I think what we took away from that was that, they are taking it on more than any other company, and it's really driven by feedback. So when we think about how we do at Kabo, we're very, very feedback oriented, whether it's, looking at one-on-ones. I try and have one-on-ones to every single person of our team, and whether it's a monthly one-on-one or a biweekly one, just to check in to see, if you think about the time that we spend most of our time 8 hours a day working. So it's important for me to figure out what are the obstacles in their life, and less about what their day-to-day routine's going or how they're hitting their KPIs, but thinking more about what are the blockers that are stopping them from being the most productive human being they can be in those 8 hours. What's stopping them in the off time that they have? Is it from work that we're influencing that? And how can we change that? Because if we can make the lives of our employees better, then of course they're going to work a lot better. It's not about, staying over and like kind of hunched over and following every single thing they do, or keeping them from a 9 to 5 clock in an office. We've always been a remote company since we started in 2019, because it gives equal opportunity. We wouldn't have found our scientist who was living in Saskatoon at the time if it wasn't for us being a remote company. And creating that opportunity for people to give you that feedback and say, these types of things allowed me to come join your company, or to have this opportunity to change my work-life balance so I can, put my kid to bed and, be there for the moments that matter in my life. Then, we wouldn't have learned those things if it wasn't for Facebook. And being able to apply those things at Kabo makes it a truly vibrant culture for people to come and enjoy and know that this is a comfortable place for them to learn and grow.
Right. It sounds like, being mission driven is really something that's really important to you and in Cabo generally. Yeah. So kind of a broader question before we close off. If you had $1 billion and you could do anything with that $1 billion, what would the $1 billion go towards?
Honestly, I think I would just probably give it all away. I honestly think one of the biggest things, like even at Cabo, that we see today, like if I had $1 billion, I'd probably just go out and create as many companies as possible in Canada that gives jobs here in Canada. Like I think one of the things I'm always baffled about, and has really driven my mission at Cabo and what we've seen from our impact, is that we sit in such an amazing country. Like it is phenomenal the opportunities we have here. Like from my parents to me, like it is ridiculous. You don't have this anywhere else in the world. And there's no chance that you'll ever be able to find it. If I had that $1 billion, it would literally go right back into fostering this country's ability to provide more opportunities for its people. Like it's very rare, whether you're a liberal or a conservative, it doesn't matter. Canadians are Canadians, and we're constantly supporting each other, whether it's through these hard times of COVID, or if it's before that and it's after that. We constantly come together and find opportunities to support each other. So I think, my mission, I think really, even after beyond these 10 years of really working on Cabo and continue to build its impact in the pet food industry and amongst pet parents, is really around, helping to bring this country and continue developing this country. Like we have a mission, whether we're immigrants, whether we're born here, whether we've lived here for our families have lived here for decades, that doesn't matter. I think what's really great is the ability that we have to kind of create that impact. And if I truly had that money, it would go right back into it, whether it's funding businesses here, whether it's building businesses here, whether it's creating youth employment opportunities or educational programs. Like those are all the things that gave me, a kid who was like a refugee coming in here, the opportunity to like really grow like this fast. And I don't think there's any other countries that would really, come to comparison when you look at the type of support we've had. And then on top of it, I think it's just our duty and our right. And, I look back and if I were to say, the end of my life, what would truly make me happy, I think these are the things that would make me happy, is saying that, we've really done a great job as individuals, as a community of immigrants, as a community of people, to say that we're helping this country move into a right direction. So if I was ever given a large amount of money, one, I would say don't give it to me. Otherwise, it would just go to others and helping to build what we need to see going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, for leaving us off on such an uplifting note. Building the Canadian ecosystem. Awesome. And it sounds like that's something that you really care about, even through Cabo, even with what you're doing right now.
Yeah, definitely. I hope to continue it. I think, we've been able to be a part of like so many great programs here in Canada, whether it was like the Google for Startups Accelerator, all the way to like the Western Accelerator from, one of my co-founders' alma mater. I was a dropout, of course, so I can't call it my alma mater. But, I look at it, I'm always just thinking, if we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the community that supported us. So I'm always constantly thinking that, regardless of the outcome of this business, I think one of the most important things is that, we create that impact. And I think my life's journey will always be to continue to create that impact for this country so that other people like myself, a younger version of Vino, doesn't have to go through some of the hoops and hurdles that I had to go through and has a little bit of an easier time. And, different individuals that have more and more challenges are, we're out there removing those obstacles for them.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your journey, sharing all those positive ideas with us. Thank you so much.
Of course. It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun talking to everyone here. And, if you ever want to reach out, I'm on Instagram, Twitter. You can always email me as well, or just check us out at kabo.co. And I'm always here to help the community as much as possible.
Yeah, kabo.co. All right. Thank you so much. Now, before we wrap up, I just wanted to thank our audience for tuning in today. Thank you so much for being with us on this evening after work, after your busy days. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this conversation. And as a special perk for the incredible audience members who stuck around until the end, I'm happy to share that prize I mentioned earlier on. So for all the people who stuck around, you get exclusive access to an awesome tool for students who want to become future innovators. We spoke a lot about entrepreneurship and supporting Canadian entrepreneurs, and that's what we're really about. So if you're interested, if you are a young student or you know a young student who's interested in learning more about what it's like about growing as an entrepreneur, please head over to this link on the screen, mystartupdojo.com/tools, to find an awesome free tool. And once again, I'd like to thank all of the amazing people who made this event possible, from Shiv at Tamil Culture to Vino for tuning in on this evening and making time. Thank you so much for being a part of it and making it happen. So thank you so much and have a great evening, everybody. Okay. So thank you so much, Vino. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Take care.